Hi, thank you for welcome to our special noodle class. We are broadcasting from our headquarters, Yamato headquarters in Kagawa, Japan. Um, my name is Akira. I'm going to be your host for this class, and this is Megumi. So she's been in charge of for North American market, and so like for those before were attending from like North America, you may be talking to her shortly. And so we are talking about Ie-kei ramen, which is like one of the most popular ramen types in Japan. And before we talk about start talking about Ie-kei ramen, I'd like to just briefly kind of introduce like ourselves, like what we do at Yamato. So we are manufacturer of noodle making machines. We've been like in this business like 45 years, and we've been manufacturing noodle making machines that are designed to do Japanese noodles like ramen, udon, and soba. And we've been also running noodle schools and on ramen, udon, and soba. We have a school here in Kagawa as well as in Tokyo, and we also have a school in Singapore. And we teach everything. So we teach soups, noodles, toppings, and even like how to operate noodle restaurants and how to manage it. So we teach like everything from scratch. And we're lucky to have our school instructors standing by actually in the kitchen. Later we're gonna show you guys. And we also so we have like we exported our noodle machines to 61 countries, and we have many distributors like partners in different countries. So we have locations, eight offices in Japan, South Korea, Singapore, Netherlands, and US. And we have distributor in different countries. So if you guys are interested in working with us, just let us know. Okay, so we are basically a group of experts who help our customers develop their unique products, noodle products, and it will like help those who want to start a noodle business. And then of course like with the school, we teach everything like we help our customers be able to produce ramen soups like ramen noodles, udon, different types of noodles. And so if you guys are interested in like working with us, please feel free to contact us. Okay, so let's start talking about today's agenda. So we are talking about Ie-kei ramen. That's one of the most popular ramen types in Japan, and I think it is popular in Japan. But like I think for like I don't know those of you like for attending from overseas, many of you may not know what it is, what Ie-kei ramen is. So like I feel obligated to like kind of talk about it, talk about what it is, right? And and then I'd like to talk about what kinds of noodles are suitable for Ie-kei ramen. And I'm going to talk about ingredients and noodle making processes. And Megumi is going to make Ie-kei ramen noodles on a ramen machine from scratch later. And then we're going to move to our kitchen that is used for our ramen school and udon school. And we're gonna have like our instructors standing by to show us a sample dish of Ie-kei ramen. And we're gonna do FAQ sessions at the end. So if you guys have any questions during the class, please send them in the comments. All right. So but before we'll talk about what Ie-kei ramen is, but like ramen's being like rapidly growing across the world. Even though it has like only like 100 years that's been evolving in Japan, like still evolving. And every year we seem to have like kind of something new popping up in Japan. And so it's pretty amazing to see like it's like fast evolving, like changing. So there's been like many variations, like even like Ie-kei ramen, like miso ramen, like So it seems to there seems to be like more and more like new types of variations of like different type of ramen coming up every year, and then so and it's highly customizable. You can change like noodles, like broth, toppings, and it's very easy. And then so ramen has something that like drives like people crazy. So I think it's like one of the driving forces to that's been like kind of making ramen as a top like Japanese cuisine. So I think ramen has like bright future, and so we are happy to like help people who want to start up like ramen business or like like improve ramen their like current ramen business with the expertise we have. And okay, so let's start talking about Ie-kei ramen. So Ie-kei ramen is actually born out of like what if the like owner of like Yoshimuraya, like which was opened in 1974 in Yokohama. So he had this what if in his mind that like he thought like what would it be big it'd be like great if we combine like Kyushu tonkotsu ramen and a Tokyo shoyu ramen. So like Ie-kei ramen, like basically it's a combination of tonkotsu and shoyu, but like with the thick noodles that are like reverse cut, which I'm going to talk about like later in this lecture. So many Ie-kei ramen shops allow customers to specify orders, soup density, like amount of fat, and how noodles cooked. And our instructor is going to talk more about this later, like in the kitchen. And Ie means like that's a Japanese word for like house or family, and Kei, like it's kind of hard to translate, but like somewhat means like a style. And for example, like Ie-kei ramen, like shop may be like affiliated to like the original Yoshimuraya shop, and ramen shops with the names like ending with the yat, like typically are Ie-kei ramen shops. And many of these shops were started by those who have worked at Yoshimuraya or like other Ie-kei ramen shops, and they are allowed to use the name, recipes, and what's needed for operation. So there are many Ie-kei ramen shops that are affiliated. And there's actually a family tree of Ie-kei ramen shops that shows how many of their shops are derived from the original shop. And typically, like, and it's not just the Ie-kei ramen shops, but like many ramen shops in Japan. But like typically, like they start cooking broth from the morning and like throughout the day. So the concentration of the broth like can vary like during the operation. It starts like from low and then like it goes up and up over time. And so the customer eats at lunchtime, maybe different from another customer has like for dinner, same shop. So, but like fans of like ramen, this Ie-kei ramen shops like rather love this inconsistency. But like our school, ramen school, like we recommend that the broth are cooked and prepared before business hours, so that the density and quality of broth are the same and consistent. So the way we prepare the broth and then the way the typical ramen shops prepare their broth is a bit different. Okay, and let's start talking about the noodles that are suitable for Ie-kei ramen. And we've been using this chart quite a lot, and this chart like basically describes different types of noodles in terms of the moisture content, like how much water is contained in the noodles, and then protein content of the flour that's used to make these noodles, and then the size of the noodles. So basically, like a noodle texture, the hard and soft, and then the size. This chart is trying to describe, and then the vertical line represents the protein content of the flour that's used to make these noodles. Basically, the higher the protein, the harder the noodle texture. And then the horizontal line presents like hydration ratio, like how much water is contained. And then higher the hydration, the softer the noodle texture. And then on the right-hand side, there's a It says like noodle size, and then starting from the top, it's 1.0 millimeter the thickness. I mean thin width, and down to like 5.0 millimeter. Like that's pretty thick. And if you notice this green circle that says like Hakata ramen, that's low in hydration ratio, but like high in protein content flour. So this is a hard noodle, and but like for the size, that's 1.1, 1.3 millimeter. So it's thin. So it's a thin and hard noodle. But if you see this yellow, big yellow circle that says like skim and dipping noodles, which we did in the last class, that's high in hydration ratio, but low in protein content of flour. But like for the size, that's 2.5, 2.2 millimeters, like it's pretty thick. So it's thick and soft noodle. And if you look at this chart, right, you see the patterns. So it's either thin and hard or like thick and soft, or somewhere in between. You can have noodles that are like thick and hard, like that's really hard, just hard to eat, right? It's not a good combination for noodle texture. You can have like noodles that are like thin and soft, and then that wouldn't give you like a good bite to it, so it's not really a good texture. But if you look at this circle that says like Ie-kei ramen, that's actually low in hydration, like uses the flour that has like kind of 11%. So I couldn't really place this circle like in the right place, right position. But the size wise, that's relatively thick. So like 1.7, 1.8 millimeter. So it's thick noodle, and so it's a hard noodle. So like it's a bit off the kind of the line of kind of noodle texture that's good. Okay, and let's start talking about ingredients. And then the most important ingredients for ramen noodles is like, of course, like wheat flour. And typically we use the protein content like 7 to like 13% protein flour. And you know we've said that like this higher the protein, the harder the noodle texture. And for Ie-kei ramen noodles, typically like the protein content is around like 11%. And then the ash content, ash is like how much minerals is contained in the flour. And then higher the ash, the darker the color, but the stronger the flavor of the wheat. Then, but like for Ie-kei ramen noodles, the ash content is typically like around like 0.4% or so, like this kind of sort of like regular ramen noodles ash content. Right? So it's kind of like on the lower side. Viscosity is measured like how elastic the noodles are going to be, and but this value is not shown on the product label, so you have to well measure it on a certain like special device. And we have this device actually, measuring device at our headquarters. So if you have some flour that you want to test it, you can send it to us, and we can test it for you. It's free. It's free of charge. Okay, so the water is also important, right? Water, the kind of water we want to use is soft water. And we want to use soft water for cooking of the noodles, especially, and then cooking of the broth. Because when you cook the noodles, right, you know, the KANSUI, salt, and other ingredients that are contained in the noodles would have to be released to the cooking water. And in exchange, the water, noodle gets the water. So that there's an exchanging process like going on, like when cooking the noodles. But like in hard water, like that contains, you know, a lot of like minerals like magnesium, calcium. Because of these calcium and magnesium, like there's less room for these ingredients to be released to. So when cooking noodles like in hard water, it takes time. And when you cook the noodles for a long time in the water, then the surface of the noodle melts, right? And then so that kind of undermines the noodle texture. And at the same time, like you're losing the noodle that's dissolved in the cooking water. So the yield of the cooked noodles is not good. So then, you know, yeah, that goes for the cooking broth too. Like, if you cook the pork bones for like, for example, 8 hours in salt water, but like you'd have to maybe like cook the same pork bones to get the same amount of stock for maybe like 12 hours, 14 hours. And if you think about the effect of it, like for, month, like a year, you'd have to imagine like how much more gas, like labor you had to spend. Okay, and the other thing I have to say about like water is that like, of course, we are adding the water to the flour to make dough, and in case of the Ie-kei ramen noodles, like the water amount of water we are adding is kind of like on the lower side, around like 31%, like 30%, like so the lower the amount of water, like less water, then the harder the noodle texture. But like you can kind of bring out more of the wheat flavor. So that's what like sort of Ie-kei ramen noodles are trying to achieve by kind of keeping the hydration ratio down. The other ingredients I have to talk about is like KANSUI. KANSUI is something that you have to have like in ramen noodles. As a definition, you have to have like this in noodles to be called ramen in Japan. Then there are many variations like KANSUI that are used for like longer shelf life and so. But like if you have like noodles that are expected to be consumed like within 1 week or up to 2 weeks, and then we use this KANSUI that's basically a combination of potassium carbonate and sodium carbonate. So potassium carbonate, what it does is that like it hardens the noodle texture. It changes the noodle color to yellow, and it has like stronger KANSUI smell, which many people like don't find like pleasant. And the sodium carbonate does exactly opposite. So we combine them like at different ratios, basically for like different noodle sizes. If you remember the chart, right? So we said like thinner the noodle, like the harder the noodle texture, and then the thicker the noodle, like we have to make it softer for better texture. So to make a thin noodle, like we increase the amount of potassium carbonate. To make thick noodles, we increase the amount of sodium carbonate. Yeah, and then so the KANSUI, we don't really want to put too much of it. Like we usually use like 1 to 2% of the weight of the flour. Okay, so getting the right noodle texture for Ie-kei ramen noodles. So Ie-kei ramen noodles like basically like typically straight, not curly, relatively thick, firm in the sense that like it's like kind of big coarse, like rough surface, but chewy at the same time. So I just wrote like kind of like they're like flour, but like I should have like written like solid ingredients. Like inside the solid ingredient, there's a flour, right, with the protein content like 11.2%. This is exactly the same recipe that we're gonna actually make use for noodles we're gonna make today. The viscosity, 700 BU, it stands for like Rabenta unit. It's a unit of measurement for viscosity. The gluten, so gluten powder is something that you want to add like when you want to harden the noodle texture, and then we're just adding like 0.5% of it. And egg white, like just white part of the egg, right? It comes in powder form in Japan. We add it to sort of like make the noodles not waterproof, but like kind of like can retain their texture longer in hot soup. So especially when you're making like thin noodles, you might want to use this egg white powder to make them last longer in hot soup. And pigment we are using to make them color like yellowy, and the liquid like 33% hydration ratio. Inside this liquid, we have water, 31%, KANSUI 1%, salt 1%. This is to the weight of the flour. Okay, so and then the cutter we are going to use to cut these noodles Size number 18 cutter, that's about like 1.7 millimeter. And so Ie-kei ramen like typically uses this shape of noodle, like it's called reverse cut noodles, and that's width 1.7 millimeter, and the thickness is 2.5 millimeter. Because usually like regular shaped noodles is like bigger in width than thickness, so it's reversed from the standard ramen noodles. So that's what we call like reverse cut noodles. Okay, so let's talk about production process of like ramen, Ie-kei ramen noodles. And so this slide just describes like different processes of like making dough, basically. Then the most important process in this slide is weighing of ingredients and the right ratios. And then at Yamato, like we weigh each of the ingredients by weight, right? So by grams and like by like pound. So because we want to be precise, we want to be like consistent in quality. So if you're making like same type of noodle, like we should be able to like make them like the same quality over and over. So and if you screw this up, then the rest of the process like wouldn't matter. So this is the most important process on this slide. Mixing process. So what we're trying to make happen in this mixing process is that agitation graduation phenomena. So like each flour grain like kind of gradually like come together like to form kind of crumbles of dough as it is mixed with the liquid. So it's just kind of like getting bigger and bigger like as we mixed with the liquid. And the resting like after like we mix it, like we put the dough into plastic bag and let it sit for like maybe like 30 minutes, like an hour, depending on the temperature actually, but like at room temperature, maybe 28 degrees Celsius or so. And so we do that to like further develop the gluten structure inside the dough. And as you can see that right top corner, like in a kind of image, that's the gluten structure of the dough, like kind of being developed, like kind of web-like form structure. And the rest of the processes I'm going to talk about like when we actually make noodles on our machine. And so we basically like develop like very good gluten structure when we are making dough. And after we make dough, that's very good. That has like very good like gluten structure. Like all we have to do is just thin it, right? Thin it to the final thickness, and then cut it, and then portion it, and we again like rest it. And we rest the noodles like in form of noodles like in the refrigerator. We rest them like maybe like for about like a few days before we serve them to the customer. So a lot of ramen shops do that to basically for better texture. So noodles like while like stored in the refrigerator, noodles lose moisture. Then like the color becomes more translucent, and noodle texture gets tighter. So basically for better texture. So when we're making reverse cut noodles, so this is a set of rollers that sheet the dough, and then that controls the thickness of the noodles. And then we have use this cutter that's like almost like paper shredder, and then each groove is fixed. And let's say this cutter has like a groove of like 1.7 millimeter each, and it cuts it, and then, so the thickness is 2.1, but like that's controlled by the roller gap, and then the width is controlled by the side of cutter you use. And when we make this kind of shape, when you cook the noodles, right? When you cook the noodles, the water penetrates from the like cut surface. So and then it kind of pushes the noodle like from the side, from the cut surface. And after you cook them, like the noodles become like this, like square shape with like dents on the four sides. And when customers eat the noodles, these dents like sort of like kind of hold more soup, so the customer can taste like more soup like as they eat noodles. But like if you make like reverse cut noodles, they'll like cut stuff is like larger, so it cooks faster, but like kind of gets softer faster in the hot soup. And the when you cook the noodles, it becomes like kind of oval shapes, and then you don't hold like much of the broth. But uh, yes, but Ie-kei ramen like typically use this type of like noodles. Okay, and so that was about it for like Ie-kei ramen noodles. And I just want to just talk a little bit about a profitability of like homemade noodles. And if you're ramen shop, like if you're like a restaurant, you have an option like buying noodles and making noodles yourself. And typically like price of ramen noodles, like you can buy it for like maybe like 50 cents per serving. And when you make noodles by yourself, that that costs you like maybe like 20 cents per serving, like including labor, ingredients, costs, and utility fees. So typically you're looking at like 50 to like 60% saving. And so it's better. I mean, if you want to like invest in it, like, and you could control like what you put in the noodles, and you can make like unique products. And you can basically like control your quality, and then like you can start serving, producing like unique products that like make you stand out. So just wanted to just talk about the good thing about the benefits of like homemade noodles. Um, and then lastly, like we feel like really bad like when we like doing this kind of like online classes, that because we can't let you guys taste the noodles, like what we make um, in this class. Like I mean, unlike the one-day class that we were doing like in person, but like we thought like we have like three locations like Singapore, New York, USA, and Amsterdam, Poland. So why don't we kind of like try our best, like make the noodles, sample noodles available to some of the people like who are really interested in it, to taste them. So if you guys want to try them, please yes, contact us, and then we'll try our best to like kind of make them available to you guys. And then we could do like private demos like at the following locations, and so if you can come to the location in person, and we can provide it, and then you can take some of the noodles home and then try them. And so if you guys are interested, please let us know. Okay, so let's start making some noodles. So this is solid ingredients that we talked about on the slide, and then it has like ramen flour with the protein content like 11.2%, viscosity like 700 BU, and then you already has the gluten. You see this gluten powder, just a bit like a kind of brownish color, and then this is the egg white powder, already in it, 1%, 0.5% gluten. Okay, this is solid ingredients, and so this is water, just water, and just water like 31%. Okay, and to the weight of flour, and then this is KANSUI, 1% to the weight of flour, and this is salt, 1%, and this is pigment. It's made of out of like a plant called like gardenia, but you can use vitamin B2 and other ingredients to make them yellow, make noodles yellow. And this is 4 kilograms total solid ingredients. So 4 kilograms and 31% to the weight of flour, 4 kilograms, and 1% to 4 kilograms, 1% to 4 kilograms. So you can do the calculation yourself. All right, so first, so this machine is called Richmond One machine. It's an all-in-one model that You can make up to like 100 portions of fresh noodles in an hour from scratch. And so first, like we like to mix it just with the solid ingredients, just to make sure that we're not gonna have like kind of big chunks in there. Like we're gonna want to like make sure that to break it into small pieces, and then we want to like put some like air to the flour particles as well. And while we do that, we dissolve the ingredients, liquid ingredients, into the water. Yeah, we want to make sure that like all the ingredients are melted, like completely, thoroughly dissolved into the water. So it's coming to be like kind of orange color liquid, but like it's gonna make the dough like pretty yellow. And first like we're gonna do like 4 minutes, and just add half to like 2/3 of the water, like just roughly. And she's pouring it onto the mixer lid, which has like a small holes, so the water liquid like drips through the small holes, little by little, to be added to the flour that's been mixed. And so we don't want to like add a lot of water like at once, right? So like, because there's gonna be like the dough that's like very wet, and then the other area that's like pretty dry. So we want to like hydrate the dough like pretty well, like evenly. So that's why we want to add the water like little by little throughout the dough like flour. And the total mixing time is 10 minutes, but we don't just stand around like wait for 10 minutes to be done. So she prepared the dough before, and you saw that plastic bag, right? That was on the plastic bag. So that's how we rest it from mixing. So the first process that we are going to do is that like it's called like rough forming, and what we're trying to do is we are just making just rough sheet of dough like through a set of rollers. So this machine has like a stainless steel like a set of rollers that you can control the roller gap with this indicator. And then so the initial roller gap, like she said, is 1.5 millimeter. And so she's feeding the dough into the roller, and then the sheet of dough comes out from the other side, and then she's binding it onto the rolling pin, and the rolling pin is like put against the rotating the roller, so it just automatically winds by itself. And so she just keeps feeding the dough to the rollers. And but this dough is like fairly, I mean, they're relatively like low in hydration ratio. And we basically categorize ramen noodles into like 3 types by hydration ratio level. And this type of dough is called a medium hydration ratio, and that's between like around like 31% to and 30 maybe like 40%. And so that the dough size, the chunks of dough, like each like crumbles of dough are not that big. So we roller gap we said is like 1.5 millimeter, but when we are doing like low hydration ratio noodles, like such as Hakata ramen noodles, like we talked about in that chart, that's like low hydration ratio noodles. So that's under 30% to the weight of flour. So that's pretty dry. It's almost like powdery dough. So in that case, we'll set the roller gap to like just 1 millimeter. it's pretty thin. But when we're doing like the tsukeme noodle like we did in last class, that's we consider it high hydration ratio noodles, over 40%. The dough, the size of dough, like crumbles, size of crumbles would be like pretty big. So we set the roller gap to like maybe 2 millimeter or like bigger. So that's how you sort of like control the roller gap, like depending on hydration ratio. And so like after 4 minutes, you add like the rest of the water, and then mix it for like 6 more minutes. So after rough forming, right? Because this dough is like still like very very fragile, like it rips like very easily. So it's not like if you just like cut it now, it's not gonna be like really good noodles like that. That's just not gonna be a good texture. So we want to make it firm. And how we do that is that we're gonna separate the dough into like 2 sheets, right? Just around like roughly in half, right? And then combine them through the rollers. And so that was like 1.5 millimeter roller gap, like this dough went through, and that's 1.5. And then like we separated it, right? So did 2 sheets, so 1.5 times plus 1.5 and 3 millimeter. But we don't want to thin it like drastically, because like that's gonna damage the gluten structure that's been developed inside dough. So we want to gradually thin it, apply like just good amount of pressure to thin it. And so that's, we apply this rule like 70% rule. So at each round of like thinning, we reduce the roller gap by 70%. And so that was 1.5 millimeter, 1.5 plus 1.5, that's 3 millimeter. So 3 times 0.7, that's like 2.1 millimeter. But just make it simple, we run it down to like 2.0 millimeter. So these 2 separate sheets of dough are going into the roller gap of 2 millimeter now. And it looks like it's going like really slow, and then we are going slow like on purpose, because we want to like apply like really good pressure on the dough. If you go faster, then we wouldn't be able to like apply good pressure on the dough. So the first round up to combining process, we want to go slow. So we set the roller speed to low speed on purpose. And so this combining process, like we usually do it like 1 to 2 times. And so like we are doing it for like another round. And again, like we're gonna separate it into 2 sheets of dough, right? And then we are putting them through the roller and feeding them. And so that was 2 millimeter, and now it's 2 plus 2, 4, and then 70%, 4 times 0.7, 2.8, but want to make it simple to make it 3.0 millimeter. And now, so combining process, like we are trying to stick them together. We want to like kind of join them together. But like after combining process, we want to, we don't want to like keep it from sticking, keep them from start sticking. So we start dusting. So this is a like automatic duster that, well, dust the dough, and then you can control, you can adjust the volume of dusting, and of course, depending on the height and ratio, you have to dust more. And for example, like 2 noodle, like we did right, the last class, we dusted a lot. But like low hydration ratio, like Hakata ramen noodles, we don't probably dust any because like well, it's not gonna stick. So okay, so after second combine process, we'll thin it. We just thin it. So combining process like kind of completes um, the like gluten structure inside dough. So all we had to do from this point on is just thin it, and that was 3 millimeter roller gap. It went through. So 3 times 70% 0.7, 2.1, rounded down to 2.0. And from this point on, because the gluten structure inside dough is like complete, so we can go faster. We can speed up the rollers. Okay, and she's measuring. She's taking a measurement of like thickness of the dough, and it's gone through 2.0 millimeter, but the actual thickness is almost like 3 millimeters, and so there's like a difference of 1.0 millimeter between roller gap we set and then the actual thickness of dough. And to get to the final thickness like of the noodles, when we cut it to noodles, we have to calculate the thickness. And then so well, after like the dough goes through the roller gap, like it bounces back. So we need to calculate how much the dough bounces back if it's going through the roller gap. And we use this kind of cutter. Yeah, it's like a paper shredder, and then so each groove is fixed in width. And this is a special cutter that we use for like Ie-kei ramen. It has like deeper grooves to well, to be able to cut the thick noodles, thick dough. Just inserting the cutter. So he set the roller gap to 1.5 millimeter, and there's a discrepancy of 1.0 millimeter between actual thickness and roller gap. So she expects the dough to be expand back by 1 millimeter, and so we are aiming at the final thickness to be 2.5 millimeter. and it's the noodles are coming out, and you can actually adjust the length of the noodles, and the length pretty much determines the serving size. And serving size for Ie-kei ramen is typically big, relatively big. Some shops like make like 150 grams, like 160 grams. But like the length of the average length of the Ie-kei ramen is relatively short, 25 centimeters. These noodles are like relatively thick, right? So even though the length is short, the serving size tends to be bigger. But basically, you can adjust the length like pretty easily, like at volume. And the batch we just did was just 2 kilograms of solid ingredients batch, and so that's not much, like many like portions that like we just made. But this machine basically like can do up to 13 to like 14 kilograms of dough in an hour. So you can make, you should be able to like make like 100 portions, 100 servings of fresh noodles in an hour. This noodle on this machine. So that's how we can make Ie-kei ramen noodles in a ramen machine. So it's a reverse cut noodles that are like kind of typically served at Ie-kei ramen shops. Okay, and so we'd like to move to the kitchen. And so this is our kitchen that we use for our ramen school and udon school. And so we have a relatively small kitchen, but like we can have like up to like 8 students at the time, and each students can have like one induction cooker and then tables, and so we have like 10 induction cookers over here because we are usually cook like 10 different kind of animal types broth. Each individual part like is cooking different animal type broth, and pork bones, pork backbones, pork thighs, and then we make like light version, like heavy version. So the student can taste what like each ingredient tastes like, right? And then they can work with like different, a lot of like different types of motodare, like using different ingredients. Then we make like tons of flavored oils from scratch. And basically, like we provide students with a lab, like where they can experiment with a lot of different types of components, basically, and to reach their ideal like recipes, and then so they can go home with a set of like complete recipes. And of course, like you have like other students who have like totally different ideas, recipes. So you can work with them and like you can share the recipe with them. So it's very kind of unique experience we provide at our school. So if we hope that like you'll be able to like join us like when things get better. So today we have like 2 instructors over here, and then so Mr. Ikeda is our chief instructor. He has a deep like background in like Chinese cuisine, which is like similar to like related to like ramen, of course, and then so he has a lot of knowledge and experiences like and so like for example like gyoza we did like before in the previous class, so he had a lot of like ideas, and so if you have like if you're interested in like Chinese cuisine or like some ramen and even like udon, feel free to like contact us for more information. If you see good. Right, so we have here over here Mr. Takeuchi, like who's from Vancouver, Canada, and he's a native speaker of English, and then so he's been with us like for a few years, and he has a background in like Chinese and Japanese cuisine, and so he's a very very good chef, and so he's been with we were lucky to have him like kind of teach us today's class. He's gonna do the kind of cooking part. And so you can call him Thomas, and I'll pass it to Thomas.
Thank you, Akira. Once again, this is Thomas. I'm one of the instructors at the Yamato Ramen School. So today I'll be talking about how to make Yokohama Ie-kei ramen. So first, before making the Yokohama Ie-kei ramen, I want to talk about what's actually in Ie-kei ramen. So first of all, broth. Broth for Ie-kei ramen is creamy pork and chicken broth. So like Akira said, Ie-kei ramen was inspired by Kyushu tonkotsu ramen mixed with Tokyo shoyu ramen. So the broth itself is creamy pork, but also they added added chicken to it to add extra flavor to it. So for the flavoring sauce, which comes from Tokyo shoyu ramen, it is soy sauce based motodare. And for the oil, they use chicken oil. Chicken oil gives a nice flavor and richness to the bowl of ramen. And for the noodles, one that you guys just made, reverse cut thick noodles. These are perfect for Ie-kei ramen because the thickness is larger than the width, so noodle becomes rectangular, and which gives a bigger surface area for the noodle to soak up the soup. So it's these reverse cut noodles are perfect for Ie-kei ramen. And for the toppings, so what makes up the looks of Ie-kei ramen is pork chashu, boiled spinach, seaweed, and leek. Pork chashu is usually pork belly. So pork belly chashu is very fatty and tender. And boiled spinach is perfect for Ie-kei ramen because Ie-kei ramen is usually very rich and flavorful. Sometimes it gets too much. So this boiled spinach kind of like balance out the bowl of ramen. In seaweed, it's a common topping for ramen. And regular ramen usually have like one sheet of seaweed. But for Ie-kei, they usually have maybe like 3 sheets or 5 sheets of seaweed. And that's one unique characteristic of Ie-kei ramen. And leek is also a perfect topping for Ie-kei ramen. Okay. So next unique characteristic of Ie-kei ramen is that usually Ie-kei ramen is customizable. So if you go to a Ie-kei ramen shop and order your bowl of ramen, they'll usually ask for 3 things: noodle texture, flavor, and richness. So for the noodle texture, you can choose firm, regular, or soft. And it doesn't mean that they're using different types of noodles. The boiling time is different. So shorter boiling time for firm noodles and longer boiling time for soft noodles. And next choice is how strong you want the flavor. And the flavor is adjusted by the amount of the soy sauce based motodare. So more motodare, stronger taste; less motodare, milder taste. And for the richness, it's adjusted by the amount of chicken oil. So more chicken oil, the ramen becomes more rich, and less chicken oil, it's going to make the ramen more lighter and easier to eat. So Ie-kei ramen is all about customizing it into your preference. And not only these 3 points, usually on the tabletop, usually have a whole bunch of add-ons that you can use. Garlic, sesame, pickled vegetable, black pepper, and Chinese chili paste. So there's a whole bunch of add-ons on the tabletop, and you can adjust it into your preference. So Ie-kei is all about customizing into your preference. Okay, so now I want to actually finish off making one Ie-kei ramen. So set the bowling machine. So here are the noodles, reverse cut noodles just made. And I'm going to boil these noodles for 2.5 minutes. Okay. And right here I have 3 different timer. One is for firm noodles, and it's going to be boiled for 1 minute and 45 seconds. For regular, 2.5 minutes. For soft noodles, it's going to be boiled for 3.5 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to start boiling these noodles. Put the noodles into the basket, and for the first 5 or 10 seconds, mix it up so that the noodles won't clump up. And make sure the boiling machine is boiling rapidly. So as you can see, the noodles are moving around freely. This allows the noodle to be consistently boiled. Okay, as the noodles are boiling, next, I'm going to heat up the stock, the broth. Like I said, the broth is chicken and pork, and it's cloudy soup. It's nice and creamy because the fat is mixed into the stock. And the concentration is around 12%. For Ie-kei ramen, I would say the density or the concentration of the stock will be around 8 to 12%, which is a little bit higher than other types of ramen. Okay. So I'm just going to heat this up. Next, the flavoring sauce. So I have 3 different sizes of scoop. So the smallest one is going to be for the mild, less motodare, and the larger one's going to be for the stronger flavor. So I'm just going to make it regular. So I'm just going to take the medium-sized scoop, and I'm going to take 1 full scoop of this motodare, shoyu, soy sauce-based motodare. And next, flavored oil, which is chicken oil. For chicken oil, same thing. You should prepare 3 different sizes of scoop and use the appropriate one that customer chooses. Okay, so motodare and oil is ready. And once the stock is heated up, I'm going to put 1 full scoop of this creamy pork and chicken stock. The noodles are ready. Make sure to strain out the water completely. The water is going to dilute the soup, so make sure to strain out the water completely. And I'm going to line up the noodles so it's easier to eat. Okay, for the toppings, I have pork chashu, boiled spinach, leek, and seaweed. So I'm going to start off with putting spinach and some slice of leek on the back. And I'm just going to lean this chashu against the spinach and leek. And lastly, seaweed. And make sure the shiny side, there's a rough side and shiny side of the seaweed. So make sure the shiny side is facing the customer. Okay. I'm just gonna slide the seaweed to the stock. Okay. So this is how to prepare your Ie-kei ramen. I'm just gonna move it to the tray. So this is a common presentation for Ie-kei ramen. You got the pork chashu, spinach, leek, and seaweed. And like I said, at an Ie-kei ramen shop, they usually have a whole bunch of add-ons. Right here I have garlic, sesame, and black pepper. So you can adjust your taste while you're eating it into your preference. Another characteristic of Ie-kei ramen is that it's often served with boiled rice. Ie-kei ramen is popular among young generation, and young generation, they like to be really filled up, so they add another rice to the bowl. So some people, they eat the ramen and rice back and forth, or some people, they just finish off eating the noodles and just dump the rice into the soup. So that's another unique characteristic of Ie-kei ramen, and you'll definitely be filled up eating more rice with Ie-kei ramen.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. That was great. That was great for about like Yigin ramen presentation, and like I said, there's been like a lot of variations by Yigin ramen, that are like have been like developing like in Japan like for the past decades, and so Yigin ramen is one of the most popular ramen types in Japan, and we think that it's gonna be, well, I think like kind of spreading in different countries. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next class. Thank you. Bye bye.